This is a recent article published by the Council on Foreign Relations in its flagship publication, Foreign Affairs. Time to attack Iran. That's the name of the article, and it's basically a call to attack Iran. A lot of times, opinions and things that are published in the Foreign Affairs, the publication, the Council on Foreign Relations, they actually do become policy. Now, what I think is going to happen is that this will definitely happen at one point in time, fairly soon. And it's been obviously it's been planned for some years, quite obvious. And most people in the United States are not buying into it. So they're probably going to have to think of something pretty good to get the people behind an attack on Iran. But since it's been actually openly called for in this publication, there's a lot of people saying, this is what the elite want and everything. Now, I personally think the elite in our country are really not that bright, because most of the time I could see right through what the hell they're doing. I mean, I knew this stuff for a million years, that they're planning on attacking Iran. I know it's over the fact that they're not using the dollar as a reserve currency. They're not. They're against the global financial system. Even Russia and China don't like Iran because despite them saying that they're friends, they're not friends. They act in their own self-interest, but they will do anything they can to put their position a little higher than the West by making the West suffer by some kind of conflict in Iran. But as always, every war is strictly about business. It's about selling as much arms as possible. Iran got ripped off buying a whole pile of stuff from Russia and China. Now they're going to go use up that military equipment sometime this year, probably. Likely get it all destroyed. It'll be put back to the Stone Age, and then, that's the game. I don't think Iran knows how to scam either, so that's one thing where I guess the Western elite are probably going to win this one out. It talks about, although the Obama administration has not publicly threatened to retaliate with military force, the allegations, in talking about allegations that there was an assassination attempt by Iran on the Saudi ambassador to the United States on American soil. That was the allegation. The allegations have underscored the real and growing risk that the two sides could go to war sometime soon, particularly over Iran's advancing nuclear program. The one thing I don't get these guys with the elite. First off, I'd be focusing in on this nuclear program more than anything, and I'd be leaving Israel out of it, because I'd be talking about, if I was working for the elite, this is how I would play it. I'd be focusing on this nuclear program. It's real because it's far too expensive, considering the sanctions and the fact that they get all the energy in the world sitting in their country. They don't need it. And once they get a nuclear program, every other country in the Middle East is going on nuclear weapons. So that's right there. That's a problem, because there's too much tension between the different types of peoples in the Middle East, and Persians and Arabs, and they don't get along, period. They don't get along, and there is a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes. You could say Iran hasn't attacked a country in 100 years, but you know what, they're doing all kinds of stuff on a sly in other countries to push their influence. You could criticize the United States for doing this, but Iran does the same thing. They're all doing it. And I particularly, myself, I don't like these type of countries having nuclear weapons, because, you talk about fanatics. There are a lot of fanatics in these areas. And if they had the power of the United States, you know what the United States would be right now? It'd be dust. There wouldn't be one living thing in the United States. If Iran had the power of the United States, and the United States had the power of Iran, the religious nut jobs in Iran would have already nuked the United States over 100 times over. They would have flattened this place, because there's nothing but a bunch of infidels. If you want to think that's not true, think whatever you want. But I know they would do that. So I really don't have any sympathy for them either, or that regime, let me put it that way. Because the average Iranian don't want to get involved in anything. But the regime, I can care less, you know. So I'm on my side of the elite here in the United States. It's just that these guys are some of the worst scammers on the planet. That's what I think, because they don't know how to deal with any of this stuff. Critics, meanwhile, have warned that such a raid against Iran would likely fail, and even if it succeeded, would spark a full-fledged war and global economic crisis. That might be the case. That might be the case. I don't know. As far as the United States is almost energy independent as it is in some ways, because if there was a mass exodus off of, say, the oil onto natural gas for transportations, particularly in the trucker fleet and things like that, that would eliminate all the OPEC oil we would need anyway, so it wouldn't even matter. But it's a matter of being able to adapt as far as quickly as possible. But if you start thinking about what goes on in the so-called economic system, 90% of it is fluff and or bureaucracy. It doesn't actually produce nothing. So, you know, I see this global economic crisis garbage. You know, I kind of laugh at it because if these guys, they can't put a measure on something. They can't value it. They say the value is zero. You know, like for instance, if you knocked out all the medical or half the medical industry because you use natural cures, they'd be saying we're in an economic crisis. And you know what I say to that? Bogus. You know, as long as you actually have the benefit, that doesn't matter. They have urged the United States to rely on non-military options such as diplomacy, sanctions, covert operations, which is military, to prevent Iran from acquiring a bomb. Fearing the cost of a bombing campaign, most critics maintain if these other tactics fail to impede Tehran's progress, the United States should simply learn to live with a nuclear Iran. I don't know. I personally, these guys don't know anything about dirty tricks. That's what I think. You know, I would have let them, you know, if that drone plane that was landed over in Iran, I would have filled it up with anthrax, and as soon as they cut a wire, it would have blown up into a million pieces. It took out about 20 square miles. That's what I would have done. You know, that's what you get for stealing a plane, right? See, you know, or say, you know, it landed there by accident, you know. But I'm not a nice guy, okay? I'm not a nice guy. I don't care. I'd whack this place completely. There'd be nothing left of it. No sympathy. Because I'd be doing a jihad by America the same way they do on us. I don't care, you know? But skeptics of military action fail to appreciate the true danger that a nuclear-armed Iran would pose to U.S. interest in the Middle East and beyond. And their grim forecasts assume that the cure would be worse than the disease. That is, the consequences of a U.S. assault on Iran would be as bad or as worse as those of Iran achieving nuclear ambitions. And he goes on, his counterpoint is, if managed carefully, it could spare the region and the world a very real threat and dramatically improve the long-term national security of the United States. Which, I think that would be the way to go. You know? As far as Iran getting a nuclear weapon, I think people in the West are very stupid and naive. You know, you think it's just Israel just playing a game. I know those guys play games. They're shrewd. Okay? They're shrewd. They do play games. But if Iran had nuclear weapons and developed the missiles to even hit Europe, they're going to do it. They're going to bide their time and they're going to do it. The regime that owns Iran, and that's the proper word, is not some peaceful regime. They're religious fanatics and they're pushing their way on everybody, whether you like it or not. And if you don't like it, you're dead, because you're an infidel. There is a lot of truth to that. Now, I know about Israel, you know, but what can I say, you know? What can I say, right? I mean, I'm not Jewish, you know? I'm not one of them. If you're not born one of them, you're not one of them. That's the way it goes, right? So you're never one of them, period. So I'm not siding with them. But I'm going to tell you right now, the Iranians are a threat. And, I don't totally disagree with this, but I think our leaders, our elite, are pretty stupid because, the way to go about this is to basically just emphasize this plot to kill this, assassinate Saudi Arabia's ambassador. Nobody bought that, and it's kind of stupid for them to bring this up in the article, but it's quite obvious that if Iran gets a nuclear program, immediately everybody in the Middle East is wanting to have the same thing. If they have nuclear weapons, everybody else in the Middle East is wanting to have the same thing, which is going to lead to bigger and bigger tensions. Because once you have that, you could say it wasn't this country, it was a radical element, caused a dirty bomb to be set off in a city someplace. That's going to lead to a big mess. So you don't want any of these people over here having nuclear weapons, period. I know Israel's got them, but you know what? They haven't used them, right? They haven't used them. If I saw a country like Iran, Saudi, Iraq, any of those countries having a nuclear weapon, there'd be so much infighting between those types of nations, it would not be smart. So Israel's got weapons, so what, Like I said, I'm not Jewish, and if you're not born one, you definitely, doesn't mean anything what you say nice to them or not. I'm not looking for any points with them. But, because you got to really be born one of them to get anything. That's the way the deal goes with these guys. But I do know that Iran is playing a game here, and they probably should be attacked. I'd have to agree with this. But they shouldn't be attacked if the American people can't see the light as to the exact reason why.